Let me take you guys back to 2015. Wow, now that I think about it, that feels like such a long time ago. But anyways, at this time, I was still a beginner content creator trying to find my place in the YouTube gaming community. I was covering niche JRPGs like, Persona, SMT, Tales of, etc., which aren't really niche anymore. You've probably heard of them now, but back then they were. One of my viewers at the time left a comment saying that I should check out Danganronpa. I didn't know what the heck a Danganronpa was at the time, nor could I pronounce the title correctly. But this viewer implied that I would love the visual novel series since it's quote unquote similar to Persona. I, being very open to viewer requests and still am, decided to give the game a shot. The first thing I normally do when being recommended a game is look up a trailer or gameplay video on said game. Gameplay is very important to me, so I always have to make sure that a game meets my standards gameplay wise. So the first trailer that popped up was a Danganronpa Another Episode trailer. I clicked on said trailer and was greeted with a girl with a megaphone on her butt, frantically running down a series of hallways. Then the trailer showed bear robots attacking the girl, and she was using the megaphone, I guess, which was a gun, to combat these robot bears. When the trailer ended, I was instantly intrigued. I personally love female protagonists, so the game got me there, and I also loved how much style the trailer had. It didn't seem like your typical generic anime video game, which the Vita had a lot of those at the time. Sadly though, the trailer had stated that the game was only on PS Vita, which I didn't have at the time. So I started doing my research and found out that Danganronpa Another Episode wasn't coming out for another couple of months, September 2015 to be exact, and that there were two games released before it, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc and Super Danganronpa Goodbye Despair. Now, I hadn't played visual novels at the time, so I was kind of skeptical on if I'd actually like that type of game or not. So after doing some more digging, I found out that both of those games were on Vita also, and to my surprise, apparently Trigger Happy Havoc was originally on PSP and had an English translation that I can install to my enhanced PSP, which is totally not an emulator or nothing like that. Like, what is that? What is an emulator? Okay, let me just go ahead and say, I do not support emulators to a degree. I'm all about supporting devs, but if a game is inaccessible, best believe I'm getting that junk on emulator. Nowadays, I have copies of all the Danganronpa games on PS Vita, PS4, and now also Switch, so I've definitely supported the devs once the game became accessible, okay? So don't attack me, please. A year later, in 2016, I finished both Danganronpa 1 and 2, then moved on to Danganronpa Another Episode. I remember beating the game and praising it for its story, which led me to the conclusion that Danganronpa Another Episode is my favorite game in the series. So here we are around 6 years later, and I wanted to revisit the game to see if my previous thoughts on it still hold up. Hence, this video. Now, before we get into the meat of the video, all I ask from you viewers is to hit the like button. That's all I ask, okay? That's all I want from you guys. I love y'all. Thank you for watching this video. So let's deep dive into Ultra Despair Girls. With the first two games in the Danganronpa series being visual novel adventure games, Spike Chunsoft wanted to develop a spin-off game that was more action-oriented, which is a bit of a leap since most of their demographic were visual novel fans, and they probably weren't really wanting an action game. I mean, come on, the hardcore fan base loved Danganronpa for its mystery and its Phoenix Wright-styled courtroom gameplay. No one was asking for a mindless pew-pew shooter game, but series writer Kazutaka Kodaka was in favor of making this spin-off game. He had wanted to write a story of two characters running away from despair, and he felt that the best way to write a story like that was to make it an action game. Spike Chunsoft said, yeah, sure, you can do whatever you want, and Kodaka got straight to work. Another Episode ended up being a third-person shooter with 3D environments, full voice acting, puzzle solving, and horror themes. The game's events taking place between Danganronpa 1 and 2, which I personally recommend you play both of those games before jumping into this one, but it is a spin-off game, which I guess you could just jump into this game without playing the other two games, but I wouldn't recommend that. The player would take control of Komaru Naegi, a high school girl who is the sister of the protagonist of the first game, Makoto Naegi. She would later team up with another character from the first game, the ultimate writing prodigy Toko Fukawa, and her split personality, Genocide Jack. The girls find themselves trapped in a high-tech city called Toa City, which was built and owned by the Toa Group. Toa City is a floating island that's isolated from the rest of the world. Isolation proved effective by allowing the Toa Group to develop advanced technology to aid the world. The group was able to play a savior role of sorts by taking advantage of several opportunities created by the tragedy, which if you play Danganronpa 1 and 2 before this game, you will know what the tragedy is. Moving forward to current events, we find the city in shambles, being overrun by Monokuma robots and Monokuma kids. Yes, you heard correctly. Kids are taking over the city with the help of the Monokuma robots. But the kids aren't doing this on their own accord. No, 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 no. They have leaders. Their leaders go by the names of the Warriors of Hope, who are a group of 5 children consisting of the
Masaru Daimon! They call me Lil Ultimate PE. My job in the Warriors of Hope is the hero.
My name is Nagisa Shingetsu. In the Warriors of Hope, I act as the vice leader and sage. When I attended elementary school, I was known as Little Ultimate Social Studies.
My name is Jataro Kamuri, and bird skin isn't yummy no matter how you cook it. I was really good at arts and crafts, so they called me Lil Ultimate Art.
My name is Kotoko Utsugi, and I play the fighter in the Warriors of Hope. And I was pampered as the little ultimate drama in elementary school. Monica is called Monica. Monica's a mage in the Warriors of Hope. I was known as Little Ultimate Homeroom while I was in elementary school.
Funny enough, the kids are ranked in 5 classes based on generic RPG character classes. We have the hero, the fighter, the priest, the sage, and last but not least, the mage. The Warriors of Hope claim that they are creating a paradise for kids by brutally killing every adult in Towa City. Getting rid of the demons is how they put it. The kids basically want to exterminate adults completely. Anyways, Kamaru is just an ordinary girl finding out that the world that she hasn't seen in little over a year has become a world of despair. So now she and Toko have to survive, take out the Warriors of Hope, and uncover the mystery of the city and also this new world. I mentioned earlier that Ultra Despair Girls was released on PS Vita, but in 2017 we got a remaster or port of the game on PS4 and Steam. After finishing UDG myself, I was a huge advocate of the game releasing on at least PS4. Personally, I was lucky to record my Let's Play of the game because I was able to buy it on PS TV, which was also known as the Vita TV, which essentially was a small console version of the Vita. You could hook it up to your monitor or TV, and the PS TV upscales compatible Vita games to 720p or 1080i. Yes, 1080i, not P. I don't know what Sony was thinking. It's an interesting design choice, but you know, I'm not Sony, so I'll leave that one alone. But also, notice earlier I said compatible PS Vita games. Yeah, the PS TV couldn't play every Vita game. Developers had to make their game specifically compatible with the console. But thankfully, the Danganronpa trilogy could be played on it. So not too long after UDG was released, the PS TV was discontinued and the Vita was slowly dying here in the West. So it was almost completely impossible to experience these games unless you had a discontinued PS TV or a Vita. Hence why I was such a huge advocate of Spike Chunsoft bringing UDG to modern consoles at the time, because pretty soon this amazing game or series would be lost on a dead handheld console. Plus the game played really poopy on Vita TV. The game ran at about 25 to 30 FPS, sometimes even lower in intense moments, which for me is unacceptable and kind of unplayable. But you know, that's me. I'm one of those super PC, everything's gotta play at 60 FPS kind of people. I know, it's annoying. But nowadays we get to experience the game at a beautiful 60 FPS with updated graphics. Hallelujah! Sadly though, we didn't see the game come to Switch recently when Danganronpa Decadence was released, which upsets me. For those who don't know, Danganronpa Decadence is the full Danganronpa trilogy on Switch, including a new expanded minigame called Danganronpa S that is a board game featuring all of the characters in the series, even UDG characters. But guess what? No UDG port in sight. So for those of you who are curious on how well received another episode was when it originally released on Vita, the game actually got a Metacritic score of 72, which isn't too bad, but I wanted to read some of the quotes from the reviews that I saw. So this review stated, "When the game does slip into heavy narrative, which is infuriatingly often, creating a horrible stop and start pace, the story is a mess." Which I'm actually going to talk about this later on in the pacing section of this video, so stay tuned for that. There was a little bit that I had to say about the pacing in this game. This review said, "It was definitely an experiment worth trying, yet the action gameplay does little to hold up its side of the bargain." And the next review says, "Does Ultra Despair Girls have moments that drag out? Yes. Is it too easy too often? Yes. but it's still Danganronpa, something you remember for a long time. So some issues with the game, it seems like these reviewers are saying, is the game has a pacing issue and it also doesn't hold up too well in the gameplay department. These are some criticisms I find fair, and I think a lot of people who play the game can definitely approve of them, which is why I call this game a beautiful mess. It has some flaws, but when you look past them, the game has a lot of charm to it. Like the last review stated, it's still Danganronpa, something you remember for a long time, and let me tell you, you will remember this game for a very, very long time. Let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. This is where the mess in the title comes in. So buckle your seatbelts, because the ride starts here. As soon as the game gives you control of Komaru, I instantly compared the game to Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil Revelations. More so Revelations because of the ability to be able to walk while aiming. A lot of games in the Vita and PS3 era played a lot like Resident Evil 4. That game was kind of like the trendsetter of this type of gameplay. So it only makes sense that Spike Chunsoft would go in this direction with the gameplay. I just recently played through Resident Evil 4, so I felt right at home with the controls. Komaru moves stiff, but you never feel like the movement is creating a disadvantage. While playing the game, I never complained about the controls being necessarily unfair or bad. I always felt like I had complete control over Komaru, which is good, and I give the game an A for that. Spike Chunsoft did a really good job in making sure that the controls felt all right for a Vita game. As I mentioned before, Komaru has a megaphone that she uses as a gun. It's called the hacking gun that she uses to take out a variety of Monokuma robots. You start off the game with the truth bullet break. Yeah, like actual truth bullets. It's kind of cool, you know, if you think about it. Danganronpa 1 had truth bullets, but like in this game, you're actually like shooting truth bullets. It's funny. Anyways, the truth bullet break is a small circular projectile that slowly destroys the Monokuma robots. If you're shooting the robots in the body with break, it takes maybe about 3 or 4 shots to kill them, but if you shoot the Monokumas in the red eye, you will be rewarded with a nice shot, which instantly kills the robot and awards you with your next break shot being a super break shot, which is bigger and can kill most bots in one shot. So if you're pretty decent at aiming, the game is pretty easy in the beginning as long as you keep hitting those Monokuma eyes. Later on, you get move, which makes things move or turn on. You also get dance, which makes the Monokuma dance and gives you a free shot to shoot them in the eye. Then there's detect, which allows Komaru to find hidden things in the environment. Also knockback, which is similar to a shotgun where her hacking gun fires multiple shots in a small spread and blasts enemies away. Then you have paralyze, which fires a shot that creates a field of electricity on impact. Then burn, which fires bullets extremely quickly. And last but not least, link, which allows Komaru to take control of a Monokuma. So if you ever wanted to play as a Monokuma, you can have a field day with that. All of these truth bullets play an important role in the overall gameplay. The player is put in situations where some bullets are better than others depending on the type of Monokuma unit attacking you or the puzzle that you have to complete. The game does a pretty good job of making you use all of the different types of bullets. Obviously, you're going to use some more than others, but not to the point where you will say to yourself, man, I've never used that bullet before. So a big kudos to the developer for handling the truth bullets really well, because most games handle something like this pretty poorly. Along the way, you will be able to visit the skill shop, which allows you to buy adjectives that will let you customize and upgrade each bullet to your liking. You want some extra power to your break bullet? Well, add the powerfully adjective to it and it will deal more damage. Want your dance bullet to shoot faster? Add the swiftly adjective and it will shoot faster. Each bullet can have up to 2 adjectives, so mix and match to your liking. I'm glad the developers added this because I love being able to make certain bullets OP. Instead of having a system where all of the bullets just kind of level up as you go, they give you the option to customize the ones that you really like to use, and that's awesome. When you're bored of playing with Komaru or find yourself being overrun by Monokuma bots, you can switch to Genocide Jack. When switching to Jack, the gameplay goes from third-person shooter to hack and slash. Jack uses her scissors to cut Monokuma robots up in style while also being pretty fast. You have an evade button that you can use that allows you to dodge projectiles and other enemies' attacks too. Jack also has really cool special attacks that you get by slicing up your enemies and building up the fever gauge. My personal favorite is the Genocide Jack barbershop, where she gives the Monokuma robots a new do. But these hairstyles are the hairstyles of Mondo Iwata, Kiyotaka Ishimaru, and Chihiro Fujisaki, who are all characters from the original Danganronpa games. It's pretty cool to see references like that. It definitely gave me a solid laugh. My favorite was when I did it to Kodako. Check this out. Also, she does a really cool scissors spirit bomb move that looks awesome, which I totally forgot this move when I played the game originally. Genocide Jack's gameplay is honestly the highlight of the game, and I wish there were more solo missions where you could play as Toko and Jack. I feel like the game being easy stopped me from utilizing Jack as much as I could have though. Because of this, I barely even upgraded Jack at the skill shop because yes, you can upgrade her too, but I felt like the money I got was better spent on Kamaru. So my first gripe with the gameplay is that they didn't give Genocide Jack a better role in the gameplay, other than, oh no, the game is really hard right now, let me switch to her so I can just cut all of these Monokuma robots up. Like, why didn't you guys give her like solo missions or something where you could play as Toko for a little bit, just so it makes more sense to upgrade her and utilize her more. So my second gripe for this game is the AI. The AI in this game is horrible. Now let's talk briefly about the types of Monokuma robots so that you guys will understand what I'm talking about later on. First off, you have the Monokuma unit. This is the typical unit that you'll be fighting in this game a lot. One shot to the eye and they are dead. It's easy. Next up, we have Guard Monokuma. They are equipped with riot shields and will run towards Kamaru and hit her with them. One knockback bullet sends their shields flying and leaves them open to attack. Then we have Junk Monokuma. These are annoying. It takes 4 to 5 eye shots to take these guys out. They will definitely give you the most problems out of all of the unit types that we are going to be talking about on this list. Next up is Bomber Monokuma. These are easy to take out and will also drop bombs when killed. These are the best Monokumas to use to your advantage. Then you have Beast Monokuma, which are extremely fast and will dodge your slow bullets. So either use Toko or get good at aiming at the eye with break bullets. Next up is the Siren Monokuma, which will attract other Monokumas when shot with Dance. All the surrounding Monokumas will stop charging towards you to stand and watch it dance, which gives you a free shot to take them all out at once. Then we have Ball Monokuma, which is the most memed thing out of the bunch. This thing looks hilarious and it's really easy to kill. And it's also perfect for taking out multiple units with the knockback bullet. Once you shoot it with knockback, the ball will roll and take out the units like bowling pins. Then last but not least, you have the Destroyer Monokumas, which fly around really fast with jetpacks on and will shoot at you and charge you at full speeds. It's best to shoot them with burn. Now that you guys know what the unit types are in this game, let's get back to the AI convo. So to start off, the Monokuma robots forget where you are at times and start running around aimlessly at walls, which got a good laugh at me because they would start charging at me and the next thing you know it's like they get confused and they're like, wait, where did Kamaru go? And they just start running at the wall. It's like, what are you doing? But little did I know that this was going to get annoying because during puzzles, like when you use Dance on the Siren Monokumas, not all the Monokumas would get attracted to the Siren Monokuma and its AI would freak out and run around aimlessly. Now this occurrence wasn't a one-time thing. It would happen all the time, which would repeatedly destroy my chances of beating puzzles on the first try, which is really frustrating if you want to get that congratulations after beating the Monokuma arcade machines. So not only is the game easy on the hardest difficulty, but the bad AI creates a headache for the player in later levels where precision is needed to clear the puzzles. I really don't remember this being a problem in the Vita version of the game, so if any of you viewers watching experience this on PS4 or PC, let me know in the comment section down below, because maybe this is a common thing that I just didn't know about. Normally, I wouldn't complain about bugs, but when it's something that is happening repeatedly and ruining the experience for me, I definitely have to call it out. Since I mentioned the Monokuma arcade machines, let's talk about them. While progressing the game's story, you will occasionally happen across rooms with golden doors. These rooms are filled with a solo arcade machine called a Monokuma arcade machine. You have to use these arcade machines as a surveillance camera for the next room. Using the surveillance camera, you have to plot out how you are going to defeat the Monokumas in there with a limited set of bullets. Sometimes the game wants you to sneak past the Monokumas without killing them, and sometimes it wants you to kill all the Monokumas with one bullet. Each room has a requirement on what bullets you can use, so pay attention to that. This gets progressively harder the closer to the end of the game you get. Now, I absolutely hate these arcade machines. The developers use the machines to pad out the gameplay so much that even Toko and Kamaru notice it. I got so sick of these arcade machines that I stopped trying on them. Not only was the AI just bad and I couldn't finish them the way that they were supposed to be finished, but I was also just like, man, these things are freaking boring. I just want to beat the game at this point. There was so many of them, it was tiring. I honestly think they should have scrapped this idea and instead maybe incorporated like little missions that you did with Toko or Genocide Jack. Obviously, I'm not a game developer, but I really do feel like Genocide Jack just needed to have something, man. And instead of having these stupid Monokuma arcade machines. Maybe you guys should have just inserted something that made Toko a little bit more useful. So not only do they have the arcade machine puzzles, but there's also a few smaller scaled riddles or puzzles that you encounter throughout the game. For example, there's a later game puzzle where you have to walk around the room and interact with the furniture to find a code that is revealed on the wall. These were a lot of fun to solve and definitely filled the puzzle quota that this game, I guess, had to meet. If they had a couple more of these types of puzzles and way less arcade machines, I would have loved that. So the general gameplay structure is pretty much walk down long corridors or streets while fighting Monokuma robots, find an arcade machine room, do that, solve a riddle, rinse and repeat until you fight a boss. Yeah, it's not that exciting. Speaking of boss, the boss fights are the boss fights are child's play. I'm sorry. I just had to put a freaking pun in there. I had to do it. I did it. These boss fights are the most unimaginative boss fights I've ever played. These kids talk for 20 minutes before the fight just for you to destroy their Gundam-inspired robot in about 3 minutes. All the player has to do is run around in a circle and shoot the robot in the weak spot, rinse, repeat until the robot is destroyed. They could have at least given these fights 2 to 3 phases each, mixing it up and maybe strategically incorporating Monokuma units that you would have to use to your own advantage. It seems like they were trying to do that in the Kodako and Jotaro boss fights, but it just wasn't executed as well as it could have been. The Nagisa boss fight was okay, and I felt like it was a challenge, but the best fight was definitely the Big Bang Monokuma fight at the end. I had a lot of fun with that one. My favorite part, the pacing. So how you feel about the pacing in this game is all a matter of expectations. I was expecting this game to be an action-adventure game with a lot of gameplay. Guess what? It's not that. There's a lot more narrative happening in this game than actual gameplay. Sometimes you'll be watching dialogue happen for 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes, asking yourself, when am I going to play? For the typical visual novel fan, this isn't an issue. These kinds of fans love story, so they love this kind of game, which is why I say it's a matter of expectations. If you think you're going to be able to just pick this game up and mindlessly blast through Monokumas for hours, then this isn't the game for you. I was surprised by the amount of dialogue and cutscenes due to this originally being a mobile game upon release. Most mobile games are designed with pick up and play in mind, and it seems like the developers decided to make this kind of like a console game, which to be honest is a good thing. A lot of people would argue that most mobile games should be created with the mindset of let's just make this a great game and not let's just make this a great mobile game. Another episode is pretty linear. There's not a lot of backtracking in the game. You can pretty much explore and find everything as you go. The areas are really small and condensed, and there's no way you can get lost in this game. To be honest, I forgot that there was a map until chapter 5 of the game when I actually needed to use the map to find a chest. But for the most part, the map is useless. So the game is separated into 5 chapters, along with an epilogue. Each chapter was relatively long. I beat the game in about 15 to 16 hours. So if I were to divide it up, each chapter was probably around 2.5 to 3 hours long, which I feel like is a pretty good amount of playtime for a Vita game, and I played the game pretty slowly, exploring every nook and cranny, trying to find every book, Lost Kids, skill, and manga I could. All of these are collectibles that are scattered throughout the game. Overall, the pacing is just okay. I enjoyed it because once I saw that, hey, this isn't an action game, it's more of a narrative game, I was like, oh, I'm fine with it then. So the pacing all boils down to, what are your expectations when you go into this game? Do you want it to be like a Danganronpa game, or do you want it to be like an action-adventure game? Because let me tell you, it does a lot more Danganronpa than action. I'm not one of those gamers who needs my games to look photorealistic, so UDG's graphics don't really bother me. But if you're looking at the gameplay on screen, you're probably thinking this looks like an upscaled PS2 game, which, yeah, you're right, it does. All of the models look touched up for the re-release, textures look a little ugly, and the 3D models look pretty jank in story moments. Thank God for those HD sprites on screen, because the emotionless 3D models remind me of Persona 3 and 4. But what makes UDG stand out compared to other generic anime Vita games is Kamasuzaki's art style is so unique. There's sections of the game where I was wowed by how fascinating the presentation was. For example, look at this 2D section towards the beginning of the game where you see the background change constantly. Not only does it look cool, but it also gives you a great visual interpretation of the city plunging into chaos. This is definitely one of my favorite moments. For the most part though, the game just looks okay. It's an upscaled Vita game. Like, what else could you want from it? Now, the music is where this game truly shines. Masafumi Takada came back to cook up some fire tracks. UDG has some of my favorite music in the series. I'll play 3 of my favorite songs for you guys right now. The first song is used in moments like when Toko and Kamaru are bonding. It kind of gives you that little glimmer of hope in an otherwise depressing game. It's a fantastic song. Listen to it. The next song is played when you meet Togami at the start of the game, and it really sets the mood for the scene. But yeah, why the heck is Togami here? The next song sounds really childish, but it has a really unsettling feeling to it. It sends so many mixed messages. Like, imagine if the ice cream truck played this song. Like I said earlier, this game has the best soundtrack in the series, in my opinion. I've had some of the songs playing in the background of this video, so you guys can come to your own conclusion on that. So this is where the video hits spoiler territory. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you can click off now. For those of you who already played the game or don't really care about spoilers, let's talk about some of the characters and storytelling in UDG. To begin, I will say Kodaka did a great job writing the characters in UDG. Every character has a pretty fleshed out backstory and nothing feels rushed. It feels like he took everything people like about the series and was able to put it into a 15 to 20-hour game. The game even has books, manga, and other comic strips that you will pick up during your journey. Now, I'm usually not a fan of horror or action games that make me read lore to feel more immersed in the setting, but Danganronpa Another Episode does it well. I really love how you will pick up a book or note and read it, then Komaru and Toko will begin to talk about it. It opens up sad, funny, or wholesome moments between the two. For instance, Toko talks about how much she hates manga and how everyone who reads it are imbeciles, while Komaru's over here trying to not be judged by Toko since she loves manga, and later on we found out she wants to be a manga artist. These little moments really help the game feel alive. I really hate when games have a full party and the characters never interact, outside cutscenes and such. Komaru and Toko also have very wholesome moments like this.
It's going to be all right. I don't know whose idea this was or why they're doing this, but as long as we stop this violence, nothing else matters.
You're right. We've come this far. Only thing to do now is believe in ourselves and go for it. You're really starting to sound like him now.
You think so?
Don't blush. It's just like I said, brother complex.
I'd be lying if I didn't say that the growing relationship between Komaru and Toko is the best part about this game. Komaru starts off as this whiny, ordinary girl who was thrust into a life or death situation, who then relies on others to make decisions for her and never actually makes any for herself. Toko, on the other hand, is socially awkward and doesn't know how to actually form a healthy relationship with someone. She pretty much has tunnel vision on just Togami. She wants Togami, but it's like, hey girl, there's other people here, you know? In chapter 4, Komaru finally makes a decision for herself by staying in Towa City with Toko after Nagisa, the new leader of the Warriors of Hope, tells her she can leave. Komaru decides she doesn't want to go because she can't let her friend Toko do this alone. While on the other hand, Toko finally forms a friendship with someone, being Komaru, and learns that Togami isn't the only person she can care about. She now has Komaru and is willing to stay by Komaru's side to lead the world to hope. It's a beautiful story, and I love how they didn't have to give Komaru a love interest just to get her to change from ordinary girl to hero. Instead, she did it for her friend. The story of this game really shows how strong a bond can be between two women and how powerful a friendship can really be. Let's talk about Kodako's arc in chapter 3. I love that Kodaka makes relatable characters that share traumas that some of us in real life have been through. That's why I love Danganronpa, and it's also the reason why I love the Persona series. Kodaka's arc, although can be awkward at times, it's one of my favorite parts of the game because of how it handles the trauma of sexual abuse. Monika uses the word gentle that triggers Kodako's PTSD, and we learn that prior to the children's game, Kodaka was an actress. We are given a scene where she is sitting on the floor frightened while a man starts talking about how she did such a good job and that they have one more job for her. I'm pretty sure we all know what that job entails. The most disturbing part of what's going on is apparently her mom is coming with, which lets us know that her mom was trafficking her. Yeah, I know. It's messed up. All the parents of the Warriors of Hope hate their kids and are using them for some personal gain, which is disgusting, and no child should have to go through this. I like that the game gives you moments where you can sympathize for these kids. Yeah, what they are doing is wrong, but at the same time, they were wronged by horrible adults and weren't given a chance to actually be kids. I share a similar trauma to Kotoko, and all I can say is that I would never wish for this to happen to anyone, not even my worst enemy. This game actually made me look deep inside one of my worst traumas and come to terms with it. Yeah, what happened to me was unfair, but now I can grow from that terrible experience and focus my energy on my YouTube channel. Maybe my channel will help some of the kids who had similar situations like me understand that they can overcome it and become a superhero. Yes, a superhero. As cheesy as it may sound, every superhero has their darkest moment, but they turned that around and became the strongest being the world has ever seen. I have to give a huge shout out to Erica Lembeck. Her execution on these Kotoko scenes were amazing. What a phenomenal voice actor. Now, the Komaru tickling minigame was awkward to say the least. I really felt like this part of the game was unneeded. What they could have done was faded to black after Kotoko says,
"Nope, not gonna happen. Switch on."
And instead, cut to Genocide Jack and had a more fleshed out Genocide Jack solo mission. Yes, I'm bringing up those solo missions because I really feel like more Genocide Jack would have really helped this game out. Kotoko tickling Komaru would have still been implied, but we could have gotten a really bad Genocide Jack mission instead. This minigame alone is the reason why I can't play the game with anyone in the room. Do you know how hard it is to explain to your girlfriend, friends, or parents? This definitely was one of the more awkward scenes in the game. I just spammed the X button in hopes I could clear it fast. So I couldn't make this video without talking about Haiji Toa, also known as the most hated character in the series, mostly because of these lines.
Are you taking us to a secluded spot to do stuff with us? If that's your plan, hurry up and get it over with. I won't resist.
No, that's not what I was thinking at all. Especially not with you. I like him younger. As young as possible.
With those lines aside, I walked into the second playthrough of this game with an open mind, hoping that I could find something that I would like about Haiji. Sadly, I couldn't find anything. I really feel like Haiji's character was just purely written so that players wouldn't like him. When you first get to the adult camp and are introduced to Haiji Toa for the first time, he seems like an okay guy. Then Toko calls him out on being the cowardly leader who is just running away from the problem instead of facing the issue at hand. Toko's comment had me like, I don't know, Toko's kind of got a point. Haiji then claps back by saying that he's waiting for the right time to strike and his main focus is protecting the surviving adults, which is totally understandable. The adults are at a disadvantage, so it would practically be a death wish to go out there and fight the kids. So I sympathize with him a little bit here. Then later on in the game, he blames Komaru and Toko for luring the Monokuma robots to the adult camp, which results in the camp being attacked. Now this is also understandable. I get why Haiji would be upset here. Then in chapter 4, Haiji congratulates Shirakuma for sacrificing himself to save the camp. Cause you know, it was only Shirakuma that did anything. Toko and Komaru definitely didn't help. Right? Thanks, Haiji. Thanks for giving us some credit here. Now, after this event, Haiji, Komaru, and Toko infiltrate a secret factory. Mr. Haiji here does absolutely nothing to help these two girls get around the factory. Then when Komaru defeats Nagisa, Nagisa gets crushed by his own mech. Komaru, being the empathetic person that she is, was concerned about Nagisa's well-being. And Haiji Toa just says, screw him, he's probably dead anyway. Then jumps into the Big Bang Monokuma like nothing happened. This is where I was starting to begin to think that Haiji really is an a-hole. Now you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself like, Blaze, why are you giving these examples right now? Basically what I'm saying is Haiji Toa is a self-centered a-hole who cares about no one else's well-being and only cares about his own self-image. Someone people will cherish and praise and will piggyback off the success of Komaru and Toko to get that. So I really tried to give Haiji a second chance, but I'm still not a fan of this character, man. And to be honest with you guys, I think that's okay. I feel like a lot of people want to like every character in the series, but I think some characters are just purely written to just not be liked. We don't always have to argue and defend characters like Haiji. Let's fast forward to the end of chapter 5 and talk about the ending of the game. We find out Monika is a huge Junko Enoshima fan, like unhealthily so. She worships Junko Enoshima like she's a god or something. Her room with all the Junko pictures shows the power level of her Junko standing. It's definitely over 9,000. Then we find out Monika didn't really need her wheelchair. She can actually walk. Whoa, plot twist. Then after a pretty lackluster boss fight with her and Kurokuma, we get to play the famous break the controller, don't break the controller minigame. Although kind of annoying, this moment actually puts pressure on the player. As everyone is trying to persuade Komaru to break the controller, I'm over here sweating bullets, not sure what to do. I almost gave in to the peer pressure a few times, but I held in there. To summarize this long-winded section, because there's a lot of like back and forth going on in this scene, basically if Komaru breaks the controller, it will plunge the world into war. The helmets the kids are wearing will malfunction, killing killing all of them. And then Future Foundation will roll up to Toa City like, what the heck? A bunch of adults killed children? Because, you know, adults killing children isn't a good look. No one cares if it's the other way around, of course, right? This acknowledgement would force Future Foundation to fight the adults, creating a new war, which would also result in the remnants of Despair having to join into the fight, and we don't want that. But Monica does. So she's trying her best to persuade Komaru to break the controller. Also, good old heroic Haiji also wants to see this happen. And here we are being mediators for this stupid sibling rivalry going on. Both Haiji and Monica being radical leaders. To persuade Komaru even more, Monica tells Komaru that she killed her parents and shows her footage of Komaru's dead parents, causing Komaru to fall into despair. While in despair, Komaru decides that she's gonna break the controller now because why fight for this stupid world? It doesn't matter anymore. My parents are dead. Screw this world. Toko then stops her and suddenly Big Bang Monokuma interrupts the scene. Finally, the best boss fight in the game happens and you get to see Komaru and Toko work together to charge up a Big Bang attack like they're Vegeta or something. Well, actually, it's not really a Big Bang attack. It's actually just a really big hope bullet. But it looks really cool, and seeing the girls work together brought a tear to my eye. So after shooting the hope bullet, Big Bang Monokuma's head pops off and we see Shirakuma roll out of the destroyed robot. Wait, what? Shirakuma? I thought he was on our team. Anyways, everyone tells Monica to shut up. They save Togami, and Komaru tells Makoto she's staying in Toa City with Toko. Yay, happy ending. But wait, we get a scene of Nagito carrying Monica away from the wrecked city while he gives a speech to her about hope and despair and blah, 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 blah. You know, Nagito talk. This scene made me really think to myself, I think Nagito just likes to hear himself talk. Nothing this guy says makes any sense, but best believe he's gonna talk. So now we see that Monica and Nagito are alive. So the scene transitions to Kurokuma and Shirakuma, who are being controlled by none other than, hold up, Junko and Oshima. Holy crap! But wait, that's not it. We're getting all these cameos right now. Izuru Kamakura shows up in the final scene, and wow, what a twist. I'll be honest with you guys, the ending of this game really isn't the reason why I replayed this game. I will say, however, this ending is a lot better than Danganronpa 2 and Danganronpa V3's ending. I didn't really replay it to see the ending though. I replayed it to see the Warriors of Hope again because I love them so much and I wanted to see the relationship between Komaru and Toko. But not gonna lie, it was nice seeing all of these characters in the Danganronpa universe again. All right, with all that being said, my final thoughts on Danganronpa Another Episode Ultra Despair Girls are that the game is flawed, but you know what? Flawed games aren't always bad games. Any game that you play, no matter how good it is gonna have flaws. So even though this game was flawed, I had a great time with it overall, and that's all that matters. This game is all about what your expectations are. If you want another really good Danganronpa experience, this game is for you. Now, would I recommend this game to people? Absolutely not. Unless I know said person was a hardcore Danganronpa fan. Other than that, this game can't be fully appreciated by someone who hasn't at least played the first Danganronpa game. I really feel bad for anyone who picked this game up thinking, ooh, it looks cool, having no prior knowledge of the series and just seeing how screwed up this game is. There is a lot of dark material in this game. It is not for everybody. This game was great to replay though, and I can't wait to replay it again in another 10 years. If you made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate you. You are an amazing human being. This project took me forever to make, so thank you guys so much for being so awesome. Once again, do not forget to hit the like button, comment down below your thoughts on Danganronpa Another Episode, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have an amazing day. Deuces.
Hope will never die!